Hey guys, Hey Dragon here, back with yet another Hunter x Hunter video, and today's review is quite different. I'm not covering work done by Yoshihiro Togashi, so this is technically filler and not related at all to the story, but it's a pretty unique case and one that's, if ever there's an exception, this is it. I'm covering a one-shot manga about Hisoka Moro made by Shoei Ishida, the mangaka most known for creating Tokyo Ghoul, the sensational hit success manga. And whilst it's not made by Togashi, it really does feel Togashi-like. When I think about this sort of situation where someone's work is being produced by someone else, but it still keeps that same energy, the immediate example that comes to my head is with Berserk. Of course, Miura, unfortunately, may he rest in soul, has passed away, yet Berserk is continuing, and even though it's not made by him and doesn't have quite the same soul, the team and production around making Berserk has done quite a good job of making it Miura-like. And in that exact same essence and spirit, this feels by Ishida very Togashi-like. We start off this Hisoka one-shot with a power of Hisoka bleeding on the ground, and he gets seen by a group which is called the Morotonio group, and they're a group of circus performers with the leader being Morotonio, and they are begging him like, oh, come on, let's just leave this child behind. We don't know what he's coming from, if he's affiliated to the mafia, let's just go on and get our practice for our next show. And he says, no. You know, I've been in that position before and I'm not going to let him just stay there and potentially die. So they take him in, and this is where we really get the real intrigue within the story of this one shot. Is it immediately after the hook, which we've seen Togashi use a very similar format. If we look back at chapter 1, we see Gon with his fishing pole just sitting there, just in a really interesting, bizarre attire, and it makes us think about questions. Why is Hisoka on the ground bleeding? How did he get here? Where in the timeline of this story is it? Is it in the future and we're going to flash backwards? You know, there's a lot of questions that I think he does a very excellent job of planting the seeds of doubts within our minds. And it's something that I think that this does extremely well, is make it feel like it's expansive, right? It's not giving all of us the answers. It's leaving seeds of doubt to make this potentially get further expanded upon by Togashi. So we get the world building where this is all happening within the European continent. And I absolutely love this because the continents in Hunter x Hunter and the world building, especially now, is being looked into further and further, and we're learning more about it. Now, to make this really intriguing to us, the reader, they've connected it to York New City. This Glum Glum land is actually placed northeast of York New City, not so far away. And what's interesting about this place and their lore, so to say, is it used to be a place of extreme poverty. Not too much unlike Meteor City, and I like that they touched immediately on this theme because poverty is something that Togashi has really delved into. I'd go as far as saying that the Hunter x Hunter world is a world of that exact type of poverty. And what they've done is they found this natural gas, which was very, very well sought for, and they had been selling it and exporting it to all the other nations. Of course, we know now the V6 had been taking advantage of it, and after that, they became insanely rich until they ran out of their gas reserves, and they needed to switch things up where they chose tourism and they exported talents such as circus acts and such, which is how the connection towards this city, Hisoka and the troop has all been made. So everything's been established, and now we need to learn about Hisoka's past, and we need to learn about the troop and how they coincide with each other. And I think that the pacing was done very well by Ishida. In the end, we see that this conflict within the troop, right? Because they're a bit unsure. They're thinking, you know, a newcomer. What if, you know, there's all these potential what ifs, and they're about to go and perform on the biggest of all stages, the big one, the Royal Glum Hotel. And now Ishida does a pretty good job of making us care about this feat, the relevance this hotel has towards the overall lore in the Hunter x Hunter world we already know of. Of course, we've got the auction in York New, which is this big event that's known worldwide, and how the Phantom Troop really came to superstardom. And Ishida plants a similar seed, saying that everyone in this field of circus acts and are performing, this is the major breakthrough. There is no bigger than this. For fighting terms in our world, this is the MGM Grand. It's Las Vegas, the big time, the big show. And through that, you can see the real anxiety these members have about a newcomer. And then one of them gets injured and Hisoka is forced to fit in the role. And everyone is amused by Hisoka. They're thinking, there's no way this kid that, he's barely seen us has any shots. And in this moment, we really see Ishida's vision of Hisoka. Ishida really views Hisoka as his prodigy like none other. Ishida views Hisoka as this person of bottomless potential, and the way that, Ishida looks at Hisoka feels a lot the way that Hisoka is looking at Gon, and I find that this is quite the interesting take, especially now in the story where Hisoka has really become such an enigma, such an important figure now that he's, survived post-mortem Nen, and he's one of the strongest amongst the Black Warrior 1, so I quite enjoyed this interpretation of Hisoka the prodigy. So Hisoka goes and he fills in the juggling acts, and he does it just as well as the person he was copying. And this had such a severe impact on the juggler that he in fact quit altogether and said, it took me my whole life to do this. So, it's done for me. With people like him around, natural talent doesn't matter anymore. And this is a theme that Ishida really latches onto within this one shot, is this idea of prodigies and the impact they have mentally on the people that really have to work hard towards getting things they want. And the sort of resilience you need to break through that barrier, and just this spirit of not giving up. And one thing I really did like within this portion of the story was the characterization and overall just how rich and very fulfilled these characters felt. It really felt like Ishida had been thinking of this plotline for quite some time, and I found it very, very hooking. It kept me engaged within the story until the latter plotline, which ends up being the end game, gets revealed. So we follow this girl within the troop called Abaki, and she is learning Nen. It's revealed that this is the circus troop's secrets, is that they're using Nen to make things seem like they're actually happening and playing on this concept of magic. Now, what's interesting about her is she's used as a mechanism to show us just how great Hisoka is, and she's also used as a mechanism to bring about the next plot threads. So Hisoka is able to learn Nen because he can somehow see Moritonio's aura. Now, here we just get the absolute insanity that is Hisoka in this one shot. Hisoka feels like Cyrenik on steroids. It is incredible. Like, Hisoka here is just absolutely the GOAT. He is so OP. So Hisoka learns Ten and Ren in a week, just with one lesson where he's not even taught that much in depth. He's able to replicate it and do it himself. And he is shown all throughout to be able to copy people and to have a knack of extreme natural talents, which goes back into this concept I was carrying on about earlier, about hard work and needing to, work your way just to get surpassed by someone that's got the cheat codes on. And through Abaki, where, she's trying to get friendly with Hisoka because, she's trying to get on the good side of Moritonio, and she's just a good person, So, she tells Hisoka about the backstory of Moritonio, saying that Moritonio used to want to be a hunter until he took the hunter exam and only one applicant passed. Now, this was really depicted as this overwhelming force of just absolute, total, and crushing defeats. Now, for us, the audience, this makes us think, who is this person that passed the Hunter exam? Just the only person that passed the exam, pretty much like Killua like later on during Greed Islands. So that was a very, very fun plot point that, you know, each time we get these one-shots, whether it be for Kurapika's one-shot or this one-shot, it's a different take on the character's views and interpretations of what it's like to be a hunter. So then we get the small moments that we don't realize until later on. All throughout this first half of the one-shots, Ishida's been laying little things where we get these close-ups of these necklaces during the performances, which seem like a bit bizarre, right? It's like, why is this getting so much focus? And later on, everything starts coming together. And this starts off with the introduction of John Doe. Now, John Doe, as we see, Abaki is out with Moritonio, and they are just talking, you know, about the performance and about Nen. And all of a sudden, John Doe comes out. There's posters of John Doe, this murderer known all throughout the European continents for killing people and having different faces on. And so this is automatically creates some intrigue. And later on, we see Abaki afterwards, after a performance, go out by herself, and she catches John Doe in the act in killing someone, and she goes to stop John Doe, but is completely at the mercy of his overwhelming Nen, as the connection immediately gets placed in within our minds. John Doe most likely is Moritonio. And I love this aspect of storytelling. One part which reminds me a bit is of course, Masashi Kishimoto, with the reveal that Toby or Madara is Obito. This thing where it's done as well in Sherlock Holmes, where we get given the opportunity to figure things out ourselves. So if we can, the reveal feels all the more rewarding and refreshing. And it feels like we ourselves have accomplished something. It's a way of making the reader feel involved with the story, which is very actively done here, and I really love the implication of it. So Hisoka comes to the save, which makes sense because Hisoka's, been staying very close to everyone. As it's been revealed that, he has got nothing in his life going on. So he's taking interest in all these little things that have been going on within this troop. And Hisoka's able to damage John Doe by getting his eye with one of his cards. Now, John Doe retreats, and that's when the performance goes well. Everything's, amazing. The troop have never been higher. They're now essentially natural heroes within the Glumgas nation. And then it's revealed that Hisoka and Moritonio are nowhere to be seen. The after party after the big performance, the biggest yet, is happening. And Abaki's saying, I'm going to go find him. And she goes out looking. And meanwhile, what this does is this places a timer on the events that are happening. We know that Abaki is on her way. So whatever needs to happen quickly. Otherwise, it's going to get intercepted, which builds a sense of motion and momentum, which I found very, very good. So Hisoka's come, and he's essentially confronting Moritonio. But he's not going up front about it. He's starting off with some chit-chat. Moritonio's trying to, he's suspicious of Hisoka knowing. So he tries to get Hisoka to gouge out some information about himself. But Hisoka refuses and reveals that he knows that Moritonio is John Doe. And so, in the most Hisoka-like fashion, he challenges him to a fight, which is absolutely mental. First of all, brilliant fights, love the choreography, love the pacing of it, love just the way that each technique was used. And we found out that Hisoka learned to use Gyo all on his own. Now this is absolutely ridiculous. We know how much Zushi in Heaven's Arena was struggling to use Gyo, and we saw how much Gon and Killua were too, and Hisoka just learned it off instincts. And in the end, it's revealed that Moritonio, otherwise known as John Doe, has this magnetic Nen ability where he uses magnets to, get these big shapes and things to attack Hisoka with. And it makes a connection to earlier, which I found very, very good. Very refreshing and rewarding that this small moment of seeing the necklaces, with this getting their own panels was further expanded upon. And it really made us think, maybe we should look back and reread this because there might be more hidden things we can find. And yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a reread. This is my first time reading it since this one shot came out. So everything I thought I enjoyed a lot more than when I initially read it. And it's so good that I think that it could easily, and I'd actually want it to be classed as canon. But ending this off, we've got the death of John Doe, where Hisoka is able to best him in combat, where for the first time ever, he uses his bungee gum, and it feels quite satisfying. And for the final touch, we've got Hisoka covering Moritonyo's face and bringing him the murderous face of John Doe to cover up his identity. And then we've got, of course, Abaki, who's searching and asking where they are, never to find them, to always to be left with that hint of mystery and not knowing what Hisoka is about to do next. But I like it because it's established the Hunter exam to Hisoka, which gives him a reason for going there in the first place. Everything gets established, right? The bungee gum, Hisoka's unwillingness to talk about himself. We see lots of moments where Hisoka is very mysterious, and here he says, I don't like talking about the past. He talks about his parents as if they were not the best people, and I really like this addition to the Hunter x Hunter verse. Overall, to give this a review, I'd say this is most likely a 7 out of 10. It's not quite as good as Togashi's. I felt like Togashi would have done things like the reveal a bit better. I think he would have also done a bit better the side characters, because really there's 3 characters of notice. There was Abaki, there was Hisoka, and then there was John Doe. But I think that Togashi would have fleshed out the other characters a bit more. But regardless, I think this was absolutely fantastic. I can see why Togashi didn't just disregard it in the interview. It really does show a lot of promise. I'm very impressed myself personally from Ishida. I'm not the biggest Tokyo Ghoul fan, but this really does show how good he is as a mangaka. To have come so close to a Togashi-esque style chapter. So yes, I really loved the addition of it. I think that it really does a lot for Hisoka's character. It's a very unique interpretation of him, which I share a similar perspective, not quite to the extent of Hisoka literally being the greatest thing there's ever been, but it was fun to see Hisoka gets, all this. It almost felt like Hisoka in this moment was the MC, and that was a very, very fun part. And I think this is a very good word to sum it up, is this just felt fun. This was a very enjoyable read. I love the world building for Hunter x Hunter and the European continents. I thought that was very well needed, as Hunter x Hunter's world is so expansive and it's so huge that we've got all these continents within the V6. And it was great to just get a new location, a new timeline. It was all just so refreshing and fun. And I think that overall, this does a very, very good job at being memorable, right? Even though I hadn't read it in a long time, I had a rough memory of how it was. And in the end, that just shows us how good it is, because that's what Hunter x Hunter is. It's super memorable. No matter what manga, anime you watch or read after, you always remember your experience of Hunter x Hunter. And this is able to encapsulate that, but of course to a slightly lesser extent. So I approve of it. I think it's great. And I highly recommend for you to read it too. Maybe reread it, because it's been a while for me, so I'm sure you'd still enjoy it. And yeah, this was Hadrigon. Please be sure to like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to stay up to date with everything within this absolutely masterful manga. And yes, this was Hadrigon. I hope you're all having an incredible day. Peace out.
戻らないと言って目指した